My name's Frankie Baines. I'm the chapter director of the Sierra Club Utah chapter. A little bit about the Sierra Club Utah chapter. The Utah chapter is a team of organizers, volunteers, and grassroots activists who are working to solve the climate crisis in a way that is fair and equitable. We work with communities around Utah to build a movement that protects and defends everyone's right to a healthy environment. From lands, water, climate, air, to justice for the communities impacted most by environmental degradation. We work on a variety of issues year after year to make sure our natural resources are protected. And I'm here with Steve Block, and I'm going to pass it to him to tell us a little bit about the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance.
Great, thanks, Frankie. So, hi, everybody. Steve Block. I'm the legal director at the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance in Salt Lake City. Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, or SUWA, is Utah's largest state-based conservation organization. We're founded in 1983 with a pretty straightforward mission to conserve and protect Utah's wildest red rock country. We are pursuing a bill in Congress called America's Red Rock Wilderness Act, which, if passed, would establish more than 8 million acres of congressionally designated wilderness on Bureau of Land Management lands. SUWA has offices in Salt Lake City, in Moab, in Washington, D.C. We have members and supporters throughout the state of Utah and all 50 states in the nation, and have been leading this effort along with the Sierra Club, Natural Resources Defense Council, and other members of the Utah Wilderness Coalition to see these wild public lands conserved for current and future generations. I'll hand it back to you, Frankie.
Yeah, so during our call, we're going to open up with a little bit about Grand Staircase-Escalante. Steve is going to share where things are standing right now with the resource management plan. And then we're going to have three speakers, three concerned citizens. We've got Debbie Young, a Southern Utah resident. We've got Nathan, a local business owner, Nathan Wagoner, and Autumn Gillard, a tribal representative. So that's our call today. At the end of it, we'll allow folks to ask questions. We'll start with press, and then if other folks have questions, please do jump in. We ask folks and invite them once we finish the call to utilize the raised hand features. And if you have any questions for us and want to follow up, our emails are in the chat as well. I'm going to go ahead and get us started with a little bit about the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument. It was established in 1996. It's 1.9 million acres, and it is truly a national treasure. It is home to world-class geology, beautiful scenery, deep indigenous history and living culture, and it's well known as a science monument. National monuments overall are incredibly important. 86% of Utahns support their protections. These protected lands are places we come to learn and explore. And access to these spaces is incredibly important to our residents and local economies. Our members recreate in wild spaces, have family members, rest and reset, and our ecological environmental ecosystems deeply depend on these protected lands. And the collaborative effort behind the protection of this national monument is a reflection of these values. So on Monday, March 4th, 2026, Senator Mike Lee and Representative Celeste Malloy made a targeted attack on the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument Resource Management Plan by overstepping years of collaborative work that led to the monument's plan's adoption in 2025. This plan has taken into account the perspectives and needs of Utah residents, businesses, tribal nations, local government, community leaders, and claims that this management plan inhibits access to the area are misguided. So we're here to give our perspective and let you all know that we stand behind the efforts to protect this national monument, and we urge our senators and representatives to cease attempts to erase this management plan and the public's voice in the future of our public lands. I'm going to pass it to Steve to give a bit more on the landscape of what's happening here.
Okay, thank you, Frankie. Again, thank you all for joining this morning. So I'm going to pick up where she just left off. Senator Mike Lee and Utah Representative Celeste Malloy have introduced what we call resolutions of disapproval seeking to leverage a largely obscure and unknown law called the Congressional Review Act to undo the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument Management Plan. I'm going to talk for a minute about how we got to the current state of affairs with this plan. Uh, Grand Staircase was established in 1996 by President Clinton, and the Bureau of Land Management, who oversees this monument, finished the first management plan in 2000. In 2017, President Trump acted unlawfully and attacked and downsized the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument from 1.9 million acres to 1 million acres, so reducing that size by nearly half. And by 2020, the Trump administration had completed its management plans for the remaining 1 million acres of the monument and the 900,000 acres that were cut out of the monument. In 2021, President Biden restored to its original size the full extent of Grand Staircase-Escalante and embarked on a land management planning process to create a new monument management plan. And these plans formed the blueprint for how the Bureau of Land Management is to go about managing the monument on behalf of all Americans. That process, as you heard from Frankie, was a deeply collaborative approach, which involved extensive outreach to Native American nations, as well as to the state of Utah, local counties, local businesses like ranchers and guides and outfitters, local utilities, members of the public from throughout the country, working together in a back and forth process to arrive at a plan. I think it's really important to note that those local voices, if it was county commissioners or ranchers, state and local governments, were not only heard, but listened to. And there were adjustments made to the final monument management plan to reflect that input, as well as input from other stakeholders. So when we hear some of the modern day critiques about this plan, that there was no outreach and that local stakeholders were not listened to, I think it's really important to note that there's a distinction between being heard and listened to and getting everything you want. These management plans are a collaborative process with a lot of give and take. And the final plan, which was completed in 2025, reflects that. It reflects the back and forth and exchange. And that's the plan that guides all 1.9 million acres of the monument today, how the BLM will interact with the public, setting expectations for members of the public about how to behave out on these lands. Important to note that there are hundreds of miles of roads and trails available for motorized access within the monument. The monument's open to a variety of uses, from recreation and camping to grazing of livestock, to target shooting on more than 1.7 million acres of the monument. It's a plan that prioritizes the conservation of the monument objects and values, while at the same time striking a balance and allowing the public to travel throughout and enjoy the monument. Nevertheless, Representative Malloy, Senator Mike Lee, very dissatisfied with the final plan. I think it's worth noting that when you try to pin them down on what exactly they don't like about it, it's a little difficult. And I think that's because at bottom, they fundamentally oppose the national monument designation. It's not the kinds of activities you can do there. It's this much more philosophical battle about should there be a national monument and the authority of the president under the Antiquities Act to establish a national monument. And so they're trying to attack the monument through the Congressional Review Act. That law is a very blunt instrument that allows Congress, by simple up and down majority votes in the House of Representatives and the Senate, to undo the plan if it passes, if the resolutions of disapproval are passed, to undo the plan. And the law prevents the Bureau of Land Management from replacing that plan with something that is substantially the same. Uh, if the plan is undone through the Congressional Review Act, it's not clear what plan would replace it. That's a big part of the concern I think you'll hear from folks is that the plan provides that certainty for land management. Um, Representative Malloy, Senator Lee talk about returning to the 2020 Trump era plan. That plan would manage only half of the monument as a national monument. The lands that Trump had excluded would be prioritized for fossil fuel development, for increased extractive industry, and intensive use. As I said, it's going to be a simple up or down vote. We don't know when that vote is coming, but it's going to be within the next several weeks to month and a half. The battle has moved to the floor of Congress. We expect the vote to be very close, and we're playing to win that fight. I'm going to hand it off to Debbie Young, who's a concerned Southern Utah resident, to share her thoughts and perspectives.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for all of that information. Appreciate it. As Steve said, my name is Debbie Young. I'm a Southern Utah resident. I consider Grand Staircase-Escalante a part of my extended backyard. I love to play and recreate there. I've tried to help protect it. I volunteer there. I wrote comments to the BLM at the open timing for that. I supported conservation and wilderness characteristics, as well as ensuring tribal nations' involvement in monument decisions. This place means a lot to me. So I wrote my thoughts out to be sure that they're conveyed clearly. So indulge me as I read them. Thank you. When I think about this place, I think about the remoteness, the kind of quiet and distance that is increasingly rare in our country. I think about the soaring canyon walls, the narrow slot canyons carved by time, and the hidden water pools that bring life to an otherwise rugged landscape. It's a place where you can still feel the scale of the natural world and your place in it. For those of us who live in the region, this landscape is a part of our lives. It's where we hike, explore, and bring our families to experience something bigger than ourselves. But its importance doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with the communities that surround it. Grand Staircase-Escalante belongs to every American. This land also carries a much deeper history. Long before any of us were here, Indigenous peoples lived, traveled, and thrived in this landscape. Their presence is written into the land through ancient dwellings, petroglyphs, pictographs, and other cultural sites that remind us this place has been meaningful for thousands of years. Respecting Grand Staircase-Escalante also means respecting and honoring Native American history and recognize that many Native American tribes continue a living connection and a current stake in the future of these lands. People from all over the country and the world come here to experience the beauty, solitude, and wonder of this landscape. Protecting places like this means protecting something unique, the idea that our most extraordinary landscapes are held in trust for everyone. Rescinding the current management plan would be a destructive blow to the monument. Grand Staircase-Escalante reminds us that some places are special, not because of what we build there, but because of what we choose to preserve. It's a landscape that inspires awe, reflection, and connection. And it deserves thoughtful stewardship to keep it intact for future generations. Thank you. I'm now going to hand it off to Nate Wagner, owner of Escalante Outfitters and the board chair of Grand Staircase Regional Guide Association. Take it away, Nate.
Thank you. And Yeah, it was wonderful to hear somebody talk about Grand Staircase. It's our front yard here. I'm Nate Wagner. I'm one of the owners here at Escalante Outfitters. I'm also the chairman of the Grand Staircase Regional Guide Association. So I've worked with Grand Staircase for many, many years. My family has run this business for 20 plus years now, and we've seen it change over and over. With this attack on our management plan, we've basically what's happening to us as a community and as business owners in the gateway communities to Grand Staircase is that we've just getting batted back and forth with changing of things, and the uncertainty is what hurts our business, and it makes it hard for us to plan for the future for future investment in our communities. We rely on our management plan as a good floor plan for what we can, how we send people out there, and how our guests and visitors actually experience Grand Staircase. As Deb mentioned, the remoteness is a very important part of the reason why people come to visit our area, and this current management plan kind of helps embody that and carry that on to visitors that are out here. We also put a lot of input into every single management plan that has been proposed for Grand Staircase. And in particular, this last management plan, we, per, we put our input in our local communities when we had local business meetings. We also put our comments in as the representatives of the Grand Staircase Regional Guide Association. So what we really wanted to do is we wanted to push for the recreation side of the management plan that allowed us to continue to recreate and to continue to be permitted as guides out on the National Monument, as well as keep the National Monument open and available for all types of recreation that go out there. The monument is currently free to access, to where you can go out there and enjoy the wild and scenic places as you move deeper and deeper, starting from our front country and moving all the way into the back country. And that's a very important part of the management plan that we this current management plan which we support. We also, in those collaborations, we worked with all kinds of different folks to help build this management plan, to put it together. We've worked with different tribal coalitions. We worked with our counties and different people that had different stakes in the management plan. So it is kind of this thing that comes together from all kind of different corners of our county and corners of our nation. The management plan now that we have, why it's so important to us is basically is that assurance that as we move forward, we know where we're going with Grand Staircase, and we can continue to kind of help promote it for the next 20 years as we move into the future. And every time that someone goes after the management plan and attacks it and tries to degrade it, we lose that assurance. So that's very hard for us, especially as the guide community, because our permits are distinctly related to the management plan and allows us to operate on Grand Staircase. We recognize that certain people might have issues with this current management plan, but we think that it can be changed. Management plans can be changed. If people do not like certain aspects of them, they can go back and they can change those management plans. During the last management plan that we had under the Trump administration, there were some issues with guiding operations that we went and addressed and had changed. That is the proper way to amend a management plan. You don't take something like the Congressional Review Act and just sledgehammer a plan that had thousands of hours of input and time and energy put into it. And so we're here to say, please do not allow Congress to take that power and that voice and that input that we've all put in the communities and take it back into their own hands and just disregard everything that we've had to say about how this management plan or how this monument should be managed. One of the things that also comes out when we're coming together to plan these management plans is that we get to collaborate with different people from all different regions. And I've had the pleasure of collaborating with many of the intertribal coalition folks, especially when it comes to our guiding association, to where we can learn to operate with each other on this management plan. It's a very unique and interesting aspect of how these management plans are put together. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Autumn Gillard with the Intertribal Coalition, someone that I had the pleasure of collaborating on this current management plan with. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Autumn Gillard. I am the coordinator for the Grand Staircase Intertribal Coalition. So I, would like to speak on the monument in regards of that, for tribal nations, this landscape is not simply federal land. It is ancestral homeland. It is sacred geography, and it is a part of who we are. So the core point with the issue of this introduction of the CRA is that there simply is a better path. If we're seeing concerns or if there's opposition against the CRA with the current monument management plan, the appropriate solution is amendment. It is not elimination. The BLM or the Bureau of Land Management amends plans regularly. That process is straightforward, transparent, and it requires tribal, public, and state input. It allows specific concerns to be addressed without dismantling the entire framework. And using the CRA is a blunt instrument. It removes the plan entirely. It cuts tribes, local communities, and the public out of the process. And there is no guarantee the monument would simply revert to a prior plan, like we're hearing that is coming out from the opposing parties. I think that it's very obvious that, as we know in governmental operations, that amendment improves policy. The CRA eliminates that process. The current plan already reflects substantial responsiveness to state and local concerns, which the Bureau of Land Management incorporated changes that were requested during the governor's consistency review. This includes adaptive grazing language, drought index considerations, vegetation treatment adjustments, and removal of camping quiet hours. So again, this is not an inflexible document. It is a plan that evolved through input from all interested parties that are passionate and would like to make recommendations about their public lands. For tribal nations, land is not property in the conventional sense. It is a relationship. It is a responsibility. It is a theological view of holistic conservation and how we interact with that landscape. When management frameworks are dismantled without tribal consultation, it is not simply a policy shift. It affects cultural survival and spiritual continuity for Indigenous people. The CRA creates uncertainty and removes the very consultation processes that protect cultural resources and reduce conflict. So for tribal nations, with this imposement of the CRA and all of the unknowns that would occur if it was to pass, it would leave many cultural resources and environmental resources open for harm. And again, this is very harmful regarding tribal nations in that we connect to this landscape in a theological format. We attend this landscape as stewards to leave offerings, to say our prayers, to gather plants, to sing our songs, to engage with our ceremonial practices. And so it really, really would harm future generations of Indigenous people from each of the tribal nations of having a connection and a footprint on this landscape. I think for tribes, what we're asking for is lawful inclusion. We're not asking for special treatment just because we are Indigenous people. But it should be noted that in any conversation that is proposed for such a large landmass that is identified as a national monument today, it should be recognized that before these were public lands, these were Indigenous lands. These are homes of Indigenous people. And we deserve the right and the ability to have the comment process and the correct conversations through proper tribal consultation. It is always something that I like to remind folks is that there is a federal trust responsibility with the United States federal government that it has to the federally recognized tribes of the United States, and that is to consult with us on issues that affect our ancestral homelands. So today, I couldn't highly advocate enough for, we need to start having these conversations and allowing tribes to have a seat at the table so that we can give proper recommendations for issues that affect our ancestral landscape. And again, I think that thinking about this landscape, and Debbie couldn't have explained it more beautifully in her words, is that this is a landscape that is revered and viewed by so many communities because of its pristine condition. And we would like to see that condition and that beautification remain throughout, time and eternity. And with that, I would like to pass it back to Steve. He has some more words that he would like to share. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Autumn. Actually, I think we're going to open it up now to questions. Frankie, maybe you can help me navigate through that as they come in. But yeah, I think that Autumn, Nate, Debbie, myself, Frankie, all happy to answer questions or go further on any of the points we have discussed already.
We have
Yeah.
one press person here. If they've got a question and would like to answer, please take yourself off mute, and we're happy to answer any questions. It looks like the speakers have spoken and shared their perspectives. We're going to wrap the call and in the recording. And we just want to thank you all for your time. Thank you all for your words. To continue to follow our work, you can reach out to Steve or myself. This recording will be shared with the press, and we will keep you all updated on what's happening with Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. Thank you all.